It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life. My daughter's graduation, an event I'd been anticipating for years, one that marked the end of a chapter in her life and the beginning of a new, exciting one. I had spent countless hours planning every detail, from what to wear to how to decorate the living room for the after-party. I wanted everything to be perfect for her. After all, she had worked so hard to get here, and we, as her parents, were supposed to be her biggest supporters. The day started out like a dream. The sun was shining, and there was a soft breeze that seemed to carry with it all the promises of a brighter future. We sat in the bleachers of the auditorium, surrounded by parents, relatives, and friends, everyone proudly watching as our daughter walked across the stage, her cap and gown billowing behind her. As she accepted her diploma, my heart swelled with pride. There she was, our little girl, now a young woman, ready to face the world. I looked over at my husband, Steve, sitting beside me. We exchanged a smile. His was faint, but it was a smile nonetheless. He had always been more reserved in public, especially during emotional moments, but I was content with his quiet support. The whole day felt like a celebration, not just of our daughter's accomplishments, but of everything we'd built as a family. But as the ceremony began to wind down, something shifted in the air. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. Maybe it was the way Steve's eyes lingered on the exit doors, or how he shifted in his seat like he couldn't stay still. He wasn't looking at me the way he usually did when we shared a private joke or exchanged a knowing glance. No, this was different. He seemed restless, agitated, and I couldn't understand why. And then, just as the crowd began to thin, as people stood to gather their things and prepare for the after-party, Steve stood up abruptly. I turned to look at him, a puzzled expression on my face. He was looking down at the ground, avoiding my eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low and urgent, like he was struggling with something he didn't want to say. My mind raced as I stood and followed him, wondering why he looked so tense, why his movements seemed so stiff. We walked toward the back of the building, out of earshot of the others, and into a quiet corner where no one could overhear us. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he had some nerves about the party, or maybe he was feeling overwhelmed by the significance of the day. I had no idea that in just a few minutes, everything was about to unravel. We stopped, and for a long moment, he didn't say anything. He just stared down at the floor like he was looking for the right words. I could feel the unease in my stomach grow, that familiar twinge that I had learned to ignore over the years. I wanted to ask him what was going on, to offer comfort, but something in the air told me this wasn't a conversation I could brush aside. "I'm leaving you," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. My heart stopped, my breath caught in my throat. I froze, unsure if I had heard him correctly. "What?" I managed to gasp. Surely, I had misunderstood. This couldn't be happening. Not now, not today, not when everything should have been perfect. "I'm leaving you," he repeated, this time with more force. "I've been thinking about it for a while, and I can't do this anymore." I couldn't breathe. My mind raced through a million thoughts in an instant. How did we get here? When did things start to go wrong? Was I blind to all the signs? Did I do something? How could he do this to me, to us, to our family? This was her day, for God's sake. Our daughter's moment. I tried to process what he was saying, but the words felt like they were coming from someone else. I couldn't make sense of them. He couldn't be serious. Not in the middle of this milestone. Not in the middle of her moment of triumph. I was shaking, my hands trembling as I struggled to keep it together. But then I looked at his face, his eyes, haunted and distant, and I knew deep down that this wasn't a joke. He was being deadly serious. The silence between us stretched on, unbearable. My thoughts were jumbled, chaotic. I wanted to scream, to yell, to demand answers, but I just stood there, frozen. How could he be so cold? How could he do this now, at a time when everything should have been focused on our daughter's happiness? Before I could find my voice, he started speaking again, but this time it wasn't to me. He was muttering to himself, pacing in small circles. His frustration grew. He looked at me like I was some kind of obstacle to his escape. His eyes were wild, like he was unraveling, his every word dripping with anger and resentment. "It's been building up for years, Stephanie. You don't see it, but I've been dying inside. I can't keep pretending anymore. I can't keep pretending for you. For anyone. The world around me blurred as the weight of his words hit me all at once. I wasn't just losing my husband. I was losing the man I thought I knew, the man I thought had stood beside me through everything. He was telling me it had been building for years. Why hadn't he said anything before? Why hadn't I seen this coming? I felt dizzy, like the ground beneath me was shifting, but I couldn't stop myself from asking the question that had been eating away at me for years, even if I didn't want to hear the answer. Is there someone else? I whispered, barely able to get the words out. He didn't answer. His silence told me everything I needed to know. I didn't know what to do. I should have said something, anything, to try to make sense of it, but my mind was a blank. All I could hear were his words echoing in my head. I'm leaving you. They felt like a sentence, a final verdict, and I couldn't quite believe it. It didn't make sense. We had been together for over 15 years, weathered so many storms together. What was this really about? How could he just drop a bomb like this on me at our daughter's graduation? I looked at him, but it was like I was seeing him for the first time. There was a coldness in his eyes now, something that made my chest tighten. He wasn't the man I thought I knew. Or maybe I had just been blind to who he really was for all this time. How long had he been feeling like this? How many silent nights had passed where he sat beside me, pretending everything was fine? Why had he never said anything before? I swallowed hard, trying to collect myself. Think, Stephanie. Think. But my thoughts kept spiraling, and it was like I couldn't catch my breath. The words didn't fit into my reality. My mind raced through every argument, every moment we'd shared over the years. What went wrong? Was it the late nights at work? The way we'd stopped talking about anything that mattered? Was I to blame? I wanted to scream at him, to ask why, how, when. But the truth was, I couldn't even get the words out. The raw, choking emotion threatened to overtake me, and I could feel myself growing smaller under the weight of it all. I tried to hold it in, tried to keep my composure, but I could feel the tears starting to burn behind my eyes, threatening to spill. Not now. Not here. Not at this moment. Why didn't you tell me? My voice barely came out, a rasp of frustration and hurt. Steve looked away, his jaw tightening as if the words were too difficult to speak. He glanced at the floor, his hands balled into fists, and for a second, I thought he might walk away. Leave me here in a daze, just like that. But then, as if he had gathered his courage, he finally spoke. It's been going on for years, Stephanie, he said, his voice strained. You've been so caught up in the kids, in your career, in everything else. But I've been suffocating. I've been pretending, and I can't anymore. I haven't been happy in so long, and he shook his head, as if the words didn't even make sense to him. I just can't do it anymore. I tried to process what he was saying, but I felt like I was losing him in the conversation. For years, pretending, I had no idea. It was like I was looking at a stranger. How had I missed this? How had I failed to see the warning signs? Sure, there had been moments when things fell off, like the time we had that argument about nothing, over who left the lights on in the kitchen. I'd brushed it off, thinking it was just stress. The tiredness in his eyes, the long hours at work, the late nights spent on the couch while I was upstairs with the kids. He had always insisted he was just busy. But this was a whole different level. Is this about someone else? The words were out before I could stop them, and as soon as I said it, I regretted it. His face didn't change, but the way he shifted uncomfortably told me everything I needed to know. There it was, the unspoken truth. I don't know, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I've been so confused, but it doesn't matter anymore. I need to get out. I felt a cold wave wash over me, and for a brief second I couldn't breathe. The ground beneath me seemed to shift, like the foundation of everything I had built my life around was crumbling away, piece by piece. I need to get out. Those words kept circling in my mind, getting louder with every passing second. He didn't want to work on it. He didn't want to fix it. He just wanted out. I wanted to ask more questions, to probe deeper, but there was a numbness growing inside of me. If I dug too deep, if I asked too much, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to hold it together. My emotions were a mess of anger, hurt, confusion, and something that felt like betrayal. But there was another feeling too, one I couldn't quite name. It was as if a door had opened inside of me, revealing something I didn't expect. A sense of relief. Relief that I wasn't imagining this. Relief that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the problem. He was the one who had checked out. He was the one who had been unhappy. I had been blindsided, but there was a part of me that had been waiting for this moment to happen, even if I didn't know it. As I stood there trying to process everything, I felt the overwhelming need to do something. I had spent years trying to keep it all together, the kids, the house, our life, and I thought I was doing it all right. But this was different. This was something I couldn't control. I couldn't fix this. Not now, not here. Not when the pieces of our life were scattered in front of me. And then, just when I thought the conversation couldn't get any worse, Steve's voice broke through my thoughts, and the words he said next made my blood run cold. "Stephanie, I don't think you'll ever understand, but I'm already gone." I didn't know how long we had been standing there, locked in this strange, suffocating moment. Time seemed to blur, Steve's words and the sounds of the graduation party going on in the background fading into a distant hum. My world had suddenly become so small. It was just me and him in this empty space, the air thick with tension. But then, something in me snapped. I don't know when it happened, whether it was his cold indifference, the way he refused to even look me in the eyes, or the fact that I had been drowning in this silent suffocation for far too long, but suddenly I felt a shift. A sharp clarity cut through the fog of my emotions. I had been living in his shadow for years, carrying his burdens, his disappointments, his silent judgments. But now, in this moment, I was done. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and something inside me just broke free. I wasn't just Stephanie, the wife who kept it all together, the mother who was expected to smile through the chaos. No, I was someone else now. Someone who was finally realizing that she deserved more than this. More than him. His words echoed again in my ears. I'm already gone. I couldn't stop the rage that bubbled up from deep inside me. Gone. He was already gone. Yet here he was, standing in front of me like everything was still okay. Like this was just a casual conversation. My hands were shaking, but I clenched my fists and took another step forward, closing the distance between us. You don't get to just walk away, Steve, I said, the words leaving my mouth before I could stop them. I don't even recognize my own voice. It was raw, hoarse, but it held a power I hadn't known I had. You don't get to stand here, ruining the one moment our daughter's been waiting for, and act like it's nothing. You think this is easy for me. His face twisted, like he was about to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. I gave you everything, I continued, the anger building inside of me like a storm that couldn't be contained. Everything. I put you before anyone, before anything. Our family, my career, me. And now you stand here and tell me it's over? That we are over. I could see his eyes flicker, but it wasn't guilt I saw. It was defensiveness. He crossed his arms, that familiar look of detachment creeping back onto his face. He didn't want to hear this. He didn't want to be challenged. He had made his decision, and he expected me to just accept it. But I wasn't going to. You're not getting off that easy, Steve. I leaned in, my voice low but unwavering. You want out? Fine. But you will never get to blame me for this. I did everything I could to make this work. You're the one who checked out. You're the one who gave up. The words were like a punch to the gut for both of us. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the frustration mounting in his chest as if he was trying to hold on to something, some shred of control, some semblance of the man he thought he was. But he was losing it. The man who had always held the reins of our relationship, the one who made the decisions and kept me in the dark for so long, was unraveling right before my eyes. I wasn't just angry now. I was seeing it clearly for the first time. His cowardice, his inability to face the reality of what we had become. All those years of silence, all those little signs I had ignored, all those small compromises I had made to keep the peace, and for what? So he could tear everything down with a single sentence. So he could walk away and leave me to pick up the pieces. I felt a flicker of something, a rush of cold fire that filled me with purpose. This wasn't just about me and Steve anymore. This was about me, Stephanie, the person I had forgotten somewhere along the way. I had spent so much of my life being his wife, being the mother of his children, that I had lost track of who I was. But now I saw the truth. I didn't need him to define me. I didn't need his approval, or his permission to be whole. I took another step back, my chest heaving, my heart pounding. I could feel the tears building in my eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of defeat. They were tears of release. I was letting go of him, of the life I had tried so hard to hold together. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't going to beg him to stay. I wasn't going to beg for anything anymore. "You've made your choice," I said, my voice steadier now, more resolute. "And now I'm going to make mine." Steve didn't say anything in response. He just stared at me, his face unreadable. I could see the tension in his body, like he was waiting for me to collapse, waiting for me to fall apart. But I didn't. I was done waiting for him to fix things. I was done putting everyone else's needs above my own. I turned away, walking back toward the crowd, toward the noise, toward something that resembled normalcy. My heart was still pounding, my thoughts still a whirlwind, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was doing something for me. And then, just as I reached the door to the party, I heard his voice. "Stephanie!" His voice was sharp, desperate. But I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I didn't need to hear anything more from him. I had heard enough. I could feel the weight of the room pressing in on me as I walked back into the celebration, the clinking of glasses and chatter of people creating an almost surreal contrast to the storm that had just exploded in my chest. It was like I was stepping into two worlds, one where everything was normal, and another where everything had shattered into a million pieces. My mind was racing, heart pounding, but I wasn't ready to face anyone just yet. Not yet. Not with the taste of Steve's betrayal still fresh on my lips. But then I heard him. "Stephanie, wait!" I froze, the sound of his voice making my entire body tense. He was following me. Of course, he was. I had known he wouldn't just let me walk away. Not after everything he just said. Not after everything I had just said. But I wasn't going to turn around. Not yet. I took a few more steps, trying to get away from the sounds of celebration, but his voice grew louder, more urgent. "Stephanie, please." His voice cracked with desperation, and it made my blood boil. How dare he? I turned to face him then. I had no choice. I could feel the sharpness in my expression, the steely resolve that had come to define me in that moment. This wasn't the woman I had been before. This was someone else, someone stronger, someone who had finally woken up to the truth of who she was and what she deserved. "What do you want, Steve?" I asked, my voice calm, but with an edge I hadn't expected. "Do you want me to beg you to stay? To fix it? Is that what you're looking for?" His eyes flickered, and I saw the briefest flash of guilt, but he quickly masked it, his defenses going back up like a shield. He had always been good at that, burying his emotions behind a wall of arrogance, acting like he had control over everything, when the truth was, he had been running from this for so long. "No, I don't want you to beg me," he replied, his tone defensive, almost angry now. I just want to explain myself. I want you to understand." "Understand," I repeated, my heart pounding harder now, my body shaking with the effort it took to keep calm. "You think I don't understand? You think I don't see what's happening here? This whole time, I've been standing by you, trying to hold this family together, trying to be everything you needed me to be, and this is what I get? A cold goodbye at our daughter's graduation." He took a step toward me, his eyes softening, but I didn't flinch. Not this time. I wouldn't let him manipulate me with that look. He didn't get to play the victim anymore. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," he said, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. It just came to a point where I couldn't pretend anymore. "I'm sorry, Stephanie. I'm sorry for all of it. But I'm not happy. And I don't think I've been happy for a long time. Don't you dare say that to me." The words burst out of me before I could stop them. "Don't you dare say that I didn't try. Don't you dare sit here and tell me that I didn't give everything I had to make this work. You think I didn't see it? You think I didn't know something was wrong? But you wouldn't talk to me. You wouldn't share with me. I begged you to open up to me, Steve. And all you did was pull away. All you did was make excuses. So don't sit there and act like I had anything to do with this." I could see the guilt in his eyes now, his posture slumping slightly, but he still didn't back down. "I never meant to hurt you. You have to know that. But I can't go on pretending. You're not the only one who's been suffering." Suffering? He was suffering. I felt a strange, bitter laugh rising in my chest, and I let it out, the sound harsh and raw. You think I haven't been suffering, Steve? You think I haven't felt the distance growing between us, like a wall I couldn't break down no matter how hard I tried? You left me, long before today. You just didn't have the guts to say it until now. He opened his mouth to respond, but I didn't give him the chance. No, I said, my voice low but unwavering. I don't want to hear any more of your excuses. I'm done. I'm done making myself small for you. I'm done pretending everything's okay, when all I've been doing is trying to hold it together for a family that you checked out of years ago. The weight of my words seemed to hang in the air between us. I saw Steve flinch at the truth, his hands flexing at his sides, like he was trying to hold on to something, anything. But I could feel the power shifting. This was it. This was the moment everything had been leading to. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally seeing him for who he truly was, someone who had made his choices, who had already given up, but still wanted to keep me tied to his broken promises. I was no longer going to be his anchor. I'm not asking you to fix this, I said quietly but firmly. I'm asking you to leave, and I need you to do it. Now. He stood there, frozen, as if my words had slapped him across the face. I don't think he expected me to be this strong. But I was done being weak, done being the woman who waited for someone else to decide her fate. I took a step back, my voice steady as I gave him one last look. Go, and don't come back. The door slammed behind Steve, and the sound reverberated in my chest. I stood frozen, the weight of the moment settling around me like thick, suffocating fog. For a few seconds, the only thing I could hear was the pounding of my heart, drowning out the muffled voices from the party that was still happening just beyond the threshold. My head felt like it was spinning, as if everything that had just happened was a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. But I wasn't dreaming. Steve was gone. He'd walked out, and I'd let him. I wasn't sure if I should feel relieved or devastated, but in that moment, I felt nothing except the sharp sting of the truth settling in. It was over. It was really over. The room was eerily quiet now, like I had entered a different world. The energy in the house, the laughter and chatter, seemed so distant, like it belonged to someone else's life. I hadn't realized how much noise had been filling the spaces between us until it stopped. I'd spent years trying to block out the silence that had started to creep in between Steve and me, but now, in its absence, it was deafening. I slowly walked toward the window, my legs unsteady, and stared out at the street, where the night air felt cooler than usual. It was as if everything had shifted. My entire existence had shifted. I had been running on autopilot for so long, holding everything together, pretending that the cracks weren't there, but now I could finally see them. I had been living in a lie, holding on to a version of my marriage that didn't exist anymore. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe through the tightening in my chest. I wasn't going to cry. Not yet. I wouldn't let myself break down in front of the kids. Not when they were still celebrating, still oblivious to the truth. The truth that Steve had checked out long ago. The truth that I had been trying to fix something that was broken beyond repair. And the truth that I couldn't keep pretending anymore. It was strange, though, this mixture of relief and anger swirling inside me. I had spent years trying to please him, trying to make the marriage work, trying to live up to an image of perfection that had never been real. I had sacrificed so much of myself in the process. But standing there, alone for the first time in what felt like forever, I realized something that shook me to my core. I didn't need him. I had spent all this time trying to hold on to him, trying to fix the pieces of a life that was slipping away, but I didn't need him to be whole. The realization was both empowering and terrifying. For so long, I had defined myself by my role as a wife, as a mother, as someone who existed to keep everything running smoothly. But now, for the first time, I was forced to face who I was without all of that. Who was I, really? I swallowed hard, pushing away the self-doubt that threatened to swallow me whole. No, I wasn't going to do this to myself. Not now. Not when I'd just taken the hardest step of my life. It was time for me to stop doubting myself. Time to stop holding on to the person I thought I was and start figuring out who I wanted to be moving forward. I turned back to the living room, hearing the soft hum of laughter from outside the door. I could hear the kids, too, still celebrating, still in their bubble of joy and accomplishment. I had to stay strong. I had to keep it together for them, for all the years I had poured into this family, even if it felt like everything was falling apart in my own heart. I took another deep breath, smoothing down the front of my dress, trying to steady my shaking hands. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about them, our children. It was about making sure they didn't feel the cracks that were splintering apart our family. At least not yet. Not while I could still protect them from the fallout. But even as I did, a part of me was beginning to feel something else, something new. Hope. Maybe it was naive. Maybe I was still too raw from everything that had just happened. But in the midst of all the chaos, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. A desire to rebuild. Not the life I had with Steve, but a life of my own. The realization was liberating. The freedom to choose my path. To not be defined by someone else's choices. To build a future on my terms, for myself and for my kids. I wasn't trapped anymore. I wasn't stuck. I glanced back at the door where Steve had left, and for the first time in my life, I felt no regret. I felt no sadness. I wasn't waiting for him to come back. I wasn't hoping he'd change his mind. It was over, and that was okay, because I had finally taken control. And as the sound of laughter and celebration grew louder outside the door, I felt a small smile tug at the corner of my lips. It wasn't a smile of happiness just yet, but it was something else. It was the beginning of something new. I turned back to the window, looking out at the quiet street as the last of the daylight faded into night. I had no idea what the future would hold, or how long the road to healing would be. But I knew one thing for certain, and I would be okay. We would be okay.